In motion is Sewell. Goff to throw. Wants to throw it to Sewell. He caught it! Boy, Sewell with a first down! Oh, yes! The big man dives down to the 31-yard line. Oh, that is beautiful!
Welcome to the Twentyman in the Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft, and I am very excited this week. This is a guy that I've wanted to have on here now for a few weeks. Derrick Barnes, third-year linebacker. And first off, I want to start with this. The under the helmet you did last year and the job that you've done kind of paying it forward to the Boys and Girls Club. If you guys have not seen it, you have to go and see that one. It was one of the best ones we've done. Kudos for you for doing that. That's been such a big part of your life, isn't it?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it was I know when we filmed it, I didn't really expect it to turn out the way that it did. I knew the story, I know my story, and I know like how much I can express it, and how it can really touch people because it's all the truth. So, and I didn't when they did it, and I was like, this is crazy.
Those kids were turned into stars, man.
Really though, it was unbelievable, and I was like, they did kudos to the film production people. They did an amazing job with that, and it turned out good, and it was like perfect timing. Because I was also doing some charity work at the time. They were like, this would be a perfect time to come in. Yeah. So yeah, it was
one of my favorite. But I've wanted to have you on also because ever since camp started, you kind of been hearing some things like, wait till you see Derrick Barnes, or man, Derrick made that big leap. Like, wait and see this, and like Derrick Barnes is coming on. Like, and then you saw it, and you were right there next to Alex to start, and just the way you're diagnosing plays and getting in the hole and making plays. What did you do this offseason to kind of we should start with this too. You played 1 year of stacked linebacker. Yeah. I mean, you were a guy that was on the edge in college, see quarterback, destroy quarterback. Right. It's a lot different taking a step back in the NFL 100%. And playing that stacked linebacker role. You've done it your first 2 years, but it just seems, Derrick, and maybe I'm wrong from the outside looking in, but that the game has slowed down a lot for you this season. Is that accurate? And what was it about this offseason? What kind of came together for you to allow you to be playing the type of football that you're playing right now?
I would say, honestly, mindset-wise, like my whole mindset changed. Now, I kind of felt like at a little bit of point at the beginning of my NFL career, I kind of felt a point where I was kind of losing myself. I wouldn't say the love for the game. I would always love the game. Just like lose the confidence. I was losing my confidence level. I was always, on edge, always afraid to make mistakes, always and that just comes from the competitive nature that I have and just wanting to be the best. So, and I had a lot of stuff to lean on. So just this upcoming year, right after my second year, I was like, I had enough. I had enough of, playing slow, not being the player that I know I could be, and because of confidence. And I told myself that my third year, I will make a change. And however things ended up, whether I start, whether I rotate, whether I'm on a special team, I don't care. But I will for sure prove to myself that how good I can be and how I can develop and how fast I can read things. And so it was just really a mindset thing for me. Obviously, I put the work in, had an amazing trainer, Yo Murphy, down in Tampa. I actually trained with Alex in the offseason. And, he just got me very explosive. And just the mind thing, I studied more than you should in the offseason. And I was just like, when I go back, I'm going to be prepared. And really, it was just like, and I kind of, at the beginning, it was a lot of pressure. You get a 18 overall pick, he's a great player. Jack is a young, great player. He's smart. He loves the ball. He is, it's not the easiest thing to go out and compete with a guy like him. But I told myself, and also faith played a big part in that with me. I kind of, lost sight of what God had planned for me. So I kind of just got back on track with that. And also just, you can't worry about, the future or the past. You have to worry about the now. So each and every day, that's what I try to do. What can I do today to get better? Instead of what's going to happen if I do this wrong? What's gonna happen to me tomorrow? Am I gonna start? So I just had to just change my whole mindset and just let it be, and it allowed me to play loose and confident. So
proactive instead of reactive,
100%.
kind of. And one of the things when we talk to Calvin Shepard, the linebackers coach here, is it's just your understanding of the defense and not just your role, but what everybody else around you does. Your ability to come in here and tell a defensive lineman, no, do this here, be here, understanding where your help is, how the whole defense comes together. Right. And he thinks that's really allowed you to take a step forward too, and just understanding your role and how you fit, and that you don't have to do too much, just do your role. Right. But in understanding how everything works around you, has that allowed you to play faster?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's important, like just going back to my first 2 years, like when I was just, I remember Coach De Leon was here and he told me at a point in time where you have to know your job before you can know everybody else's. And, Alex, a guy I look up to, a guy is like literally like my best friend. And I just seen the way he can execute, the way he could know what's going on. He knows what the D-line is supposed to do, what the DBs are supposed to do, and I was like, I need to get to that point in order to elevate my game. And I just, like, even when in the meetings, like, coaches talking to the D-line, the outside linebackers, I'm taking down these notes because part of the time, usually most of the time, it helps you. Yeah. And you can understand where your help is and where you need to fit. So I think that's very important, especially playing Mike linebacker, because they could make a call that they forget, but I know that it's a call that's supposed to be, and you can make it for them. So it just, as an inside linebacker, it's a lot, man. And it took me, the crazy thing people don't know is I knew it would take me this long to get everything down. I knew it would take me a few years. I didn't want it to. I was hoping maybe it was, after my first year, but I knew back in my mind that, and the crazy thing is I was giving it all I had, but I knew who I am, and I knew about 2 to 3 years it would, mentally it would take me a minute because it happened to me in college.
I mean, Derrick, it's a big jump to go from the college to the NFL anyways. Yeah, now you're talking about going from your hand in the dirt, see quarterback, kill quarterback, to have to know everything and understand everything. Yeah. Passing game, run, everything. I mean, that's difficult, And
that's
so
for sure.
The pressure that you have on yourself to obviously do that right away, but I think that's a realistic approach to say, hey, it's going to take me maybe a couple years. And now they're just watching the way you communicate with the guys in front of you, the guys in the back. I mean, you're playing fast. You're making a ton of plays. You got to be really excited about this year. And you mentioned it too. The team drafts Jack number 18. But I thought when we talked to Calvin, it was great. He said, look, in some places you draft a guy 18, he's starting. That's just the way it is. Yeah. It doesn't seem like with Calvin and Dan and his staff that's the case. They're going to play the best guys, and we've seen that over the course of the 3 years 100%. That he's been there. They don't care where you come from. Yeah. If you prove that you can play, you're going to play. You've got to love that part, that you've been given the opportunity to compete for a starting job.
And honestly, that's all I ever asked for, was just the opportunity. I told the coach, and it's true. As soon as I seen that pick, first thing I do is text Coach Shep and told him, I was like, what's the plan? And, he kept it straightforward. He was like, we drafted 18 overall pick. He said, but you know how we roll, and the best guy's going to play. And I was like, okay, that's all I need to know. So obviously it gave me a sense of urgency to, pick my game up. But like I said, I can't take anything away from Jack, man. I've, him and Malcolm, like I've seen rookies come in, and those two guys, the way they pick up the game, how physical they are, both of those guys can play. Malcolm and Jack, like those are guys you want to be around. And obviously you got the alpha, Enzo, who is just sharpens everybody. And I knew it would be a challenge. I knew even with Malcolm, like I was really, like honestly, like all three of us were competing, and still are competing. Like even last season, it was like it's a week to week thing, and you have to continue to go, and Coach Shep said, the hot guy will continue to play, and so it's been a great opportunity, a great camp for all of us, because iron sharpen iron, and I've seen those guys do amazing things, and I'm learning from everybody, no matter how young they are. So. And
Dan Campbell said he didn't like his linebacker room. He said he loves his linebacker room right now. And it just seems like with Malcolm and Jack, and even Germ coming back, and his ability to play the pass and special teams and everything else he provides, it just seems like it's a room that's got a really diverse skill set that you can match a lot of what you're going to see offensively. Is that a good way to put it?
I'll tell you one thing. all 4 or 5 of us are going to play. That's just how it is. When you have a group of guys that we have in our room, really all of us are starters.
Yeah.
Like everybody there's no drop off. Like honestly, there's no from Alex to whoever, from the 5th, 6th, there's no drop off.
No.
And you got and like you said, you got a guy like Jerm who has seen a lot of football in this league, who has played a lot of football in this league, who you have seen made plays, big time plays.
Yeah.
Stripping the ball, punching the ball out, making tackles for loss. Like I've seen Jerm, like my rookie year when Alex got hurt and the thing happened with Jamie Collins, like you've seen Jerm, light it up and also to be able to go out and have, 10 plus special teams tackles is unreal. You can't find that. And just to go back, you got, Malcolm, Jack, me, like just to have
even Pitt's a guy that has been shown that he can step in and play and be a special teams core guy.
It's literally everybody in Pitt, man. I love Pitt, man. He is like one of the hardest working people I've ever met, because like he is like his mentality is crazy. And me and Pitt talk. We're locker room buddies. Like we talk, have a conversation before practice, and always tip him like, man, God is good, man. and like he is one of those guys like that you would love to always be around. Yeah. Because no matter what, Pitt can do it all. He can play Sam, he can play Mike, he can play Rush, he can play Will. Like that is a guy you want on the team, because anything happens,
glue piece.
He's ready to go.
A glue piece.
He's always ready to go.
Right?
Because he trains and he mentally prepares like he's a starter.
So you guys are competing for that Mike spot, and Alex is back to the Will. That's a good fit for him. I talked to him and he said he loves it. That's kind of his natural fit. Just can run around and play make. Yeah. You like having the green dot? And I got to ask you this, because I had Jared on, and Jared said, we talked about, just having the coach in your ear sometimes and stuff like that. You like having defensive coordinator just in your ear talking to you?
There's pros and cons with that.
Are you ever like, okay, I got it.
Yeah,
stop.
Not really. I mean, because AG is always giving, like, we have TV times they can still talk to us or whatever. And AG always get good advice. And it's good, D Barnes alert this, alert that, and to be able to communicate that with the defense, like that's a pro to have in the green dot.
He can talk to you,
because he can kind of like tell you what's going on and what he sees
all the way up to like 15 seconds.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
Yeah.
So you kind of get you can get a little bit of intel. So that's a plus.
So it's not just the play call. It's people have to understand that they 100%. Can hear him until 15 seconds in the play clock. So he's talking to you. You like having the green dot.
So I do, and then that's a pro. But a con I would say is like you're tired. And you're the only person that can give the call.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like you just ran all the way down the field on a go ball, and then something happens. Say you get a PBU, or they don't throw it to your man, or it's a flag, and you have to run all the way back to get the call, and to say the call, it's exhausting. So, it's funny because me and Alex used to get into it a lot, because when we played together, when we would be on the field together, it was like beginning my NFL career, so I wasn't really talking. I was focused on what I had to do, and he used to yell at me. It was like, you have to repeat the call, because I'm only going to say. I was like, but I understand it now.
Yeah,
because now when it's me and Malcolm out on the field, and I'm trying to give, and Malcolm just like me, he's like, no, I'm trying to make sure I know what I got going on. So, but Malcolm is better with that now. He talks a lot, man. He communicates, man. I love that guy. But I know how it feels to have the green dot. And you have also, like, even though the other linebacker doesn't have it, it's like he should know and be able to communicate the call. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind it. I don't mind it. It's all right.
I know you.
I'll leave it to Alex though.
I know you got to run. You got some meetings and some stuff you got to do. But I just want to end with this. It looks like the way the game has slowed down that Derrick, you're having a lot of fun playing football in your third season, maybe even more than you've had. And I think when you're having fun playing football, like it allows maybe just everything to slow down, and you appreciate 100%. Your role. You appreciate where this defense is headed. From the outside looking in, you always got a smile on your face. You're making plays, and it looks like you're having fun.
I'll tell you one thing. I've definitely, I never lost my love for football, but I've definitely found that passion, that urgency, that just, the love for the game. Like, and I love football, but now I love the game. I love preparing. I love getting better. I love the challenges and the adversity that comes with it. Like, it's like not slowly, like it's here. Like I can feel it, and I feel like my first few years I actually did lose that, honestly. And just it's pressure and it's stressful and it's a lot going on. And but now like, and it helps me just go out and have fun and be able to play fast and be able to not to overthink and just be able to laugh and celebrate with my teammates. Like I can feel it, man. And all thanks to really my teammates, my coaches, because honestly, without them, I don't know where I would be as far as like that confidence level, and they give it all to me. And AG and Shep and Dan is just, when you have those guys who appreciate you doing and they take recognition of what I'm doing, it's amazing. It just helps me want to continue to get better. So,
well, it's been fun to watch your development in the third year. It's been fun to watch this defense. Yeah. I mean, this is a revamped defense. You got some young guys that are coming into their own, and you've got some new vets here, and it's fun to watch. And KC's right around the corner. You guys are certainly going to be tested week 1, but it's been fun to watch you and watch the defense come together. Appreciate you taking the time.
No
Thanks
time.
so much,
I appreciate
man.
you. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to the 20 Huddle podcast presented by Microsoft. That was a great chat with Derrick Barnes there. Some good stuff from Derrick.
Great stuff, as always.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how that kind of linebacker room develops. It's a pretty diverse unit, and just kind of who starts, what guys do, different packages. I think Aaron Glenn can do a lot of different things with that linebacker room. That'll be interesting.
A lot of different skill sets this year. Yeah. I think you're seeing Derrick Barnes developing now in year 3. We know what Malcolm can do. Jack Campbell brings a different sort of intensity, I think, to the room than in years past, and a lot of good special teamers in there as well.
He is PJ Clark. I am Tim Twentyman, and it's an interesting time, Peach. It's the last preseason game, and then it's roster trim.
Go time.
And it's a little different. There wasn't the initial cut. It's now goes from 90 to an initial 53. And it's important to say initial 53 because we always see movement on that roster. You got to remember that 800 plus players become available from the 31 other teams. So, there's going to be, some jockeying there. And Brad Holmes and his staff is going to have an eye on what's out there and what's available. And if he sees an opportunity to, potentially upgrade at a certain position outside of the organization, he's certainly shown in the past he's willing to do that. So it's an initial 53, but it's an interesting time. And now it sets up a pretty important game for a lot of guys on this roster in Carolina for this preseason finale. And to me, I think it kind of starts right at the quarterback position. We saw last week with Teddy Bridgewater and Nate Sudfeld, not really their fault because of the offensive line play, but, struggled to move the football with some consistency and some rhythm. And so you'd obviously like to see more of that in Carolina. But to me, the question is, do you keep 2 quarterbacks on the initial 53 or do you keep 3?
And I think it's doubly interesting because the Lions were the team that got the new rule approved.
Right. That
you can have 3 quarterbacks on the game day roster and the third one does not count towards your
46
game day count in case of an emergency where the first 2 drop out.
And we saw that because of the San Francisco game last year where basically the second half they couldn't throw
Christian
the football.
McCaffrey was running the Wildcat for an entire half of the NFC Championship game.
And they don't want to see that.
No.
And so nobody does. And so it's a good rule, but it was interesting that Dan Campbell said this week that them proposing the bylaw change would not affect their decision to keep 2 or 3. It's really going to come down to, look, Teddy Bridgewater is going to be the number 2. It's really going to come down to, is Nate Sudfeld better than a cornerback, somebody who's in that final 50? Is Nate Sudfeld one of the best 53 players on this roster? That's what it's going to come down to. And to me, he's got to have a huge game in Carolina for him to prove that.
I also think the interesting aspect of it is Teddy comes in so late. I mean, Teddy's been around. He's in year 10 now. He's played in a lot of different systems, but he comes in so late. If Jared Goff needs a backup early in the season, is Teddy going to be ready for Thursday in Kansas City? Is Teddy going to be ready by week 2? Are you 100% sure that Teddy knows the system and can run it? Because we saw it at the end of the first half in the second preseason game. Teddy, they took him out for the 2-minute drill because he just got here. They hadn't gone through the 2-minute offense yet.
Right.
So are you in a position that Teddy can step in and be ready if needed early in the season?
I think 3 weeks. Now, he'll have good 3 weeks by the time Kansas City rolls around. Like you mentioned, a 10-year veteran. He's been in a lot of different systems. It's just the verbiage that he talked about as being a little bit different here that he's had to pick up. But there's nothing that a defense is going to throw at Teddy Bridgewater that he hasn't seen.
No.
So you know what I'm saying? I think he'll be ready. And I don't think they would even have to dumb down the playbook or anything like that. It's just, to me, if something happens to Jared and Teddy becomes your starter, well, now who's your backup?
Yeah.
And, Nate Sudfeld's been around a while. There could be some interest from some other teams. If you do cut Nate, is he not going to get picked up? Can you get him on your practice squad? I think that's decisions, Brad and Dan are going to have to make too. And it just really, to me, comes down to this game. I mean, I think Nate, and I shouldn't say it comes down to this game, but this is, the big lights are on, right? He's going to get an opportunity to play. He goes out there, has a couple scoring drives, looks efficient. Then to me, I think that's big, and that says he could potentially be one of the top 53. And I think you go with 3 quarterbacks until you have to make a decision later in the year when Hendon Hooker becomes available, and then you're going to have to decide what to do as well.
Yeah, and I think if you're seeing, Teddy played most of the first half until that last 2-minute drill, and then Nate got the second half, I would assume it's probably going to be pretty similar.
I would think.
And you're running with also, I mean, we're going to get to it in a couple minutes, but wide receivers that are trying to make the roster too. So you are all kind of, Sudfeld at least, in this common ground, you got to go out there and make plays.
Yeah, and they didn't last week, and I think that's got to be the big difference this week. Well, let's touch on the wide receivers because you mentioned it. Look, we know who the top 4 are. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Josh Reynolds, Marvin Jones Jr., and Khalif Raymond. Obviously, Jameson Williams is going to start the season on the suspended list. He's going to miss the first 6 games, so there's an opportunity there. Peach, definitely. Are they going to keep 5 or 6? We'll just kind of see how that roster goes, but there's definitely going to be 5. And so is the 5th wide receiver on this roster right now?
I think yes.
You think yes?
I do think yes.
All right.
I would not be surprised if Brett Holmes gets aggressive. Already did with Denzel Mims, who got hurt. And there are...
We saw Trinity Benson a couple years ago.
There are a lot of good wide receivers that might not end up on teams that are going to go through waivers. And it's not like the last 2 years where the Lions were picking high on waivers, where you had the second claim last year and you could pretty much get whoever you wanted. You got to fall to 18. Not great, but you could see maybe another one of those, the pick does not convey for Denzel Mims. Now you get that pick back. Do you go throw another conditional trade at somebody on somebody else's bubble?
Or is it Dylan Drummond? Is it Chase Cota?
I said yes.
Yeah.
I
is
think
it Chase Cota? Is it, we talked about Trinity Benson, Maurice Alexander, it's a great opportunity Friday night for one of those guys. I think probably the 2 that come to mind just that impressed me the most through camp is Chase and Dylan. I think those guys are pretty neck and neck. And I think one thing that you guys have to watch Friday night, and I think this will be very telling, is special teams reps. Yeah. That 5th wide receiver, whether it's in the return game or how many core special team stuff, how many special teams is Dylan Drummond on? How many special teams is Chase Cota on? And will they see more of that as they try to find out, look, those 5th wide receivers, those bottom of the roster guys, if they're active on game day, they've got to be a big part of special teams. And so not only what they do offensively, and it's a big night for them, but keep an eye on what they do special teams, why who's used where and who's used more often, and that could be a telling factor to what the team thinks for that 5th wide receiver as well.
And another guy, the guy you didn't even mention, Antoine Green, has been pretty good on special teams as well.
I always forget that, and I don't know why. Even when I write, sometimes I'm like, wait a minute,
he's here too, and he's flashed in practice a couple times, and he's been a core special team
in their scrimmage on Tuesday of this week. A nice diving, sliding kind of catch in the end zone.
I mean, this scouting department saw enough to throw a draft pick at him. So you're
he was back there returning kicks in the scrimmage as well.
Something we haven't seen a whole lot. Gunner reps.
Yet.
Those are valuable spots when you're fighting for a wide receiver 5 or even a wide receiver 6. So I think Who it's going to be, I can't
I think
tell
Brad
you.
Holmes would love it to be Antoine Green, right?
Yeah.
A guy they drafted, a guy that they've invested in, a guy with size, which the other guys don't have a whole ton of. But it'll be
you
interesting.
mentioned Maurice Alexander, too, has had a bunch of good practices, even making contested catches over the middle, and obviously the punt return touchdown. That gives you something. You don't need a punt returner with Khalif back there, but you need a kick returner, and he's proven that he can do that in the USFL. So I think, there are options for wide receiver 5.
100%. All right, the offensive line, let's shift there because obviously not a great week 2 for the reserves along the offensive line. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater and Nate Sudfeld were under constant pressure. I think they averaged 1.8 yard per carry, 35 total yards, and there just weren't holes. There wasn't great protection, and I think that was a little bit worrisome from my view to watch that. Now look, the top 5, top 6 really with Graham Glasgow, and I'd almost put Matt Nelson in that group as 7, but you can keep up to 9, 10. And look, we asked Dan Campbell about the reserves on the offensive line, and he didn't mince words when he was like, look, we're looking at every team out there. Obviously,
unlike wide receiver, there's not a lot of offensive linemen
usually not. So obviously you've got to, knock on wood for health for those top 5. It'll be fun to see the top 5 together for the first time.
Yeah, how
Week
about
1,
that?
hopefully. Haven't seen that in 2 years. But look, injuries are going to happen. You're going to need guys to step up. We saw that last year with some guys needing to play significant games. And can you trust right now 8 and 9? I think that's going to be the interesting part about this game, something I'll have a close eye on, is those backups, those 2 spots, maybe 3 spots that are available. Does somebody step up and take that tonight?
Yeah, well, I think the interesting thing for me, at least in this past week, has been Sorsdal has now been repping at right guard and left guard.
Yeah.
So I think you're seeing a little bit of versatility. Obviously, 5th round pick, it's not going to hit immediately, but you're getting them acquainted with both sides in the worst case scenario. And then the OT3 spot, Matt Nelson, Jermaine Ifedi, Bobby Hart, these are all veterans that have been around the league for a long time. Right. So at least you'll have some starting experience there. Jermaine Ifedi was a first round pick. I mean, there's options there, but then to me, I think the real pivot spot is who is the third interior guy.
Yeah.
Because if Graham's got to go play guard, you need another center potentially. I think that is really the key spot for me right now.
Yeah. So something to keep an eye on, certainly versus Carolina. The running back 3 spot, is it Craig's Reynolds' job? I kind of feel like it is, just the way they've tried to use him in so many different ways. We saw in the scrimmage this week, he was kind of that guy. I thought he had a pretty good scrimmage. To me, he's that number 3 guy, but can anybody step in there and take that spot from him?
I think Jamar Jefferson is he's electric. If he makes a couple guys miss, he's got the top end speed that maybe Craig doesn't have. But I know, and we saw it last year in Hard Knocks, Deuce Staley was pounding the table for Craig because that guy can block. And that is going to come up time and time again, that you got to be able to pass protect, especially as a third down back or receiving back like that. Craig's been good. He's back. He's healthy. He's got some kick return potential. He did it a couple times. I think he's got the inside track right now, but Jamar Jefferson, another draft pick that, maybe Brad Holmes is looking to see something out of.
And to me, the difference there, too, is in the passing game a little bit, too. I think Craig has shown over the last couple of years that he can be a weapon in the pass game, that he can be reliable there, catching the ball, not just the protection part of it. I think that's something where Jamar is maybe a step behind. I think he's shown improvements in that area, and they've tried to get him involved in there. Yeah. But when you talk about, a third back, if you've got some injuries, you want a guy that you can trust in pass protections, that you can throw the football to. Look, Craig's had a 100-yard game in this league, so I just think it'll be hard for Jamar. But I think you're right. I think there's maybe a little bit more upside. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
With Jamar, there's maybe a little bit more higher end talent, skill set overall with Jamar. But in the end, with your third back, don't you just want a guy that you can trust to protect your quarterback and catch a pass out of the backfield and move along and have a 100-yard game if needs to grind it out? That to me is Greg Reynolds.
And I think when you're looking at like I said, with Jermaine Ifedi, veteran, Benny Snell's looked pretty good since showing up. And he's the leading rusher through 2 preseason games right now. But that's a guy that, has played in a lot of games, good goal line back, thumper, can get in there, replace maybe if you need the Jamal Williams role, 1-yard touchdowns. Benny Snell can get you that. So I think that's another guy that maybe you can't rule out before this third game.
Are we both pretty sure on Kabinda being the fullback? I think this is one of the few franchises that still values that position. He can also play some tight end for you, and he's a core special teamer. I put him in, and so I think you're going to keep 4 backs, at least on the initial 53, the way the roster is shaping out some other spots and some tough decisions at other spots. So to me, it's like kind of one spot. So again, for guys like Jamar and Greg and Snell, it'll be interesting against Carolina to see who steps up and who kind of takes the reins of that job. Another interesting one will be the kick return position. We all thought it was Justin Jackson's for a second consecutive year, and then a little bit surprisingly,
we thought RB3 was Justin Jackson for a second consecutive year.
And then retired mid camp, and so they're putting a lot of different guys back there. We saw in the scrimmage this week with Anton Green, and we've seen with Craig Reynolds, and we've seen lots of different guys back there. I would expect maybe Drummond and Cota to maybe see.
Cota had a nice punt return.
Yep, to see that back there and see if they can do the kick return part of it. So that'll be another interesting one to watch in Carolina Friday night, to see who they put back there and if anyone can maybe sway Dave Phipp, the special teams quarterback, one way or the other.
Yeah, and I think Starling Thomas was very good, at least in week 2 for me. He had the long of 37 that he broke a couple tackles, made a couple guys miss for a cornerback, not even an offensive player. And he's been great in camp, and I think has a very good shot at becoming that 4th outside cornerback right now. And I think he's shown potential. Maurice Alexander, as I said before, was a USFL all-pro kick returner. He can do it. He can do it in the punt game. That gives you more versatility in the event of a Khalif Raymond injury too. There are, kick return is a good spot to get the ball in somebody's hands.
I'll say this, just talking about this and thinking about the 53-man roster, this is certainly going to be the toughest few days that Holmes and Campbell have had. I think this roster is to a point now where you're going to see some guys cut from this football team that are going to go to other football teams and be pretty good players and contribute to those. And that's the problem that you want to have. And it's good that we're at that spot in the roster. Is there anything else that maybe jumps out? Anything that you'll be kind of eyeing on Friday night as we sit up in the press box and watch the third preseason game?
I think safety is kind of interesting. Yeah. Just the way it's kind of developed throughout camp, because Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is now back to playing safety, which was not the plan until Brian Branch shows up and starts blowing everybody up.
Wait till you watch Brian Branch consistently. That kid is going to be a player.
So you're now have 3 starting safeties.
Yeah.
And where, like, when you're shaking out the defensive backfield, do you really, because you have Will Harris who can play safety in a pinch, you have Brian Branch who can play safety in a pinch. Is there a safety for? Would you rather keep another cornerback there? That spot to me is really interesting.
Fatu Melifonwu, I think that'll be the interesting one to me when you talk about safety. Obviously what he does on special teams and just
he's the lead gunner right now at full health.
What he does on special teams and the mismatches he provides, the size. I don't think he's a player that you want to give up on already. But look, the best ability is availability, right? He's missed 17 games the last 2 years. He's injured right now. We'll see if he plays Friday night. But that, to me, will be an interesting call. And the other one to me will be, this defensive line has so much depth now. The most depth that they've had in the Brad Holmes era. Yeah. Is there enough roster spots for 6-7 edge guys? Where does Julian Okwara kind of fit into the mix there? I think that'll be an interesting one to watch too. Can he have a big night? Obviously had the big game against the Giants, not so much against Jacksonville. Can he have another one and maybe sway a decision one way or the other? That how they shake up along the defensive line will be interesting to me too.
And on the interior defensive line, I think you're looking at Levi again, who was great against in the first preseason game against the Giants, and then was not as great against the Jaguars, but the fact that he's even healthy and is showing the flashes, I think obviously is wildly improved from the last 2 years, but what can he show in a third straight week now?
So there's a lot to watch Friday night in Carolina. A lot of bubble roster jobs on the line, some starting spots for some reserve spots, some different guys in different packages, how they fit. It'll be fun Friday night, and then it'll be obviously some tough decisions to be made the following days before Tuesday's deadline. We'll break it all down next week on the initial 53, and then we'll start to get ready for Kansas City week one,
already.
which will be fun too. He's PJ Clark. I'm Tim Twentyman. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed this episode. We'll be back with you next week.